Bob Ferguson and his Holocaustal gang of murderers have long hidden behind what they claim is superficial legitimacy for the program on Mount Desert Island. Their claim is that I threatened Leslie Katz and cheered Thawes Gordon in his exoneration of date rape at Harvard. Therefore, Ronald Reagan had the right to revenge John Lennon by establishing that I was putting myself as a risk for reckless behavior, and that the punishment should be meted out by the script that doesn't exist. And this they all fulminate as legitimate all the way to Russia and laughing to Mellon Bank, because they claim it proves that Leslie Katz, who was the pretext for the operation, was not behind the attacks that were represented by Gail Burston, a likeness of whom appears on a Robert Fripp record from 1979. Robert Fripp says, when we checked out the sympathetic vibrations of Matt Crary, there was some odd resonance that made me drop my pick. Therefore, this witch was a date rapist and is proven by Leslie Katz's virginity. Okay. Does that prove their case, or is it just an insufferable story that the murderers and police administration sold so that people could wangle their approval of the AIDS attack in a caustic story from the Carousel Club with Oliver Stone and Ming-No Wen? Let's start with the basics. The letters were written from Israel by a girl named Gail Carolyn Burston. Since the letters and the name even itself implies a homophone for Christian Armagedonism, Gail Carolyn, like Christmas caroling, bombs bursting. That's an apocalyptic scenario. It's clear that it was a nom de guerre. The person who they said represented Leslie Katz, Wills L. Brome, is on record as having promoted and admired Joseph Goebbels. So the JDL is admiring and promoting Joseph Goebbels, according to police administration, Bob Ferguson and his gang of murderers. Let's talk about what Gail Burston's storyline was. Leslie, who looked like a mouse, she said. Well, that's Leslie Katz. She looks like a rodent. Leslie, who looks like a mouse, was Billie Jean Guinevere, which is Billie Jean King, encrypted with chivalric protection. They correlate the shooting of Martin Luther King to a girl who had lost her virginity before she seduced me. Greg Carl intoned, the initial encounter of the X motive is tainted by the shadow of the adversary. She says 74 is the best number and mentions the crossroads. This was Forbes and Murray, where Mr. Rogers' church was, where Leslie Katz waited every day for the bus to her house from Ellis. So when Tree of Life was shot mysteriously, the crowd gathered at Forbes and Murray. So we know that the storyline being promoted, that it is anti-Semitic to question Leslie Katz, it's another way of saying that it's anti-Semitic not to go along with the AIDS attack. So anybody who opposes the AIDS attack is anti-Semitic. How did they get this to work? They decided to sell something to the queers to make them hate me for the same reason that some people hate them, which is their reckless identification with sins of the flesh. And so they said that John Lennon was the caretaker of the true people who are Catholic and abstain from the sins of the flesh. And the queerbait who engaged Zell in an attempt to secure evidence, not to offer myself as a sacrifice, to investigate. to secure evidence for public warning. The queerbait, if he had abstained and thought clearly, could have saved John Lennon. And how would that have saved the gays? Well, it would have saved the gays the trouble of siding with the people who are now exterminating Gaza. And what we know from the threshold of logic that exists in Her Majesty's association with Molenbeek, that the various sharp detectives who are assembled to sell the idea that Leslie Katz was not involved in a gay and sanitation and Leslie Sanitation Alliance. Leslie Sanitation Katz was not Israel Katz, even though she was Israeli. She was not in an alliance with Gail and Leslie. They will say that the allegation that they could have done anything to stop these mad people before it got even worse with yet another genocide is proof that virginity is rape, because people who oppose the butchering in Gaza are anti-Semites. We've already established that anybody who opposes the AIDS attack is an anti-Semite. And Seattle loves this story. The gays there literally talked of building momentum, protecting Shulman, who was robbing the Carnegie for $8 million, promoting the Pussy Bowl operation that Barack Obama claimed was a legitimate defense of Leslie Katz that had nothing to do with Gail Burstyn, littering our community college, with cartoons saying the joke is on you. Not so sure this joke is real funny, but you don't have to say anything because they've already won and they plan to keep on winning and get away with it. So you might as well just keep quiet, laugh all the way to your joke to the bank.